And then how do you even get started? So if you're just starting out in preparedness, or it's just finally kind of dawned on you that it would be really a good idea to be prepared to live without the electric grid after what you've seen recently, how do you even get started? So you've got to do some research. Now, I'm going to have down in the links to this video a couple of things that I have found very, very helpful. And like I said, I did a lot of research to figure out over the years what I finally ended up with. But far and away, the very best solar video series I've ever seen is by Tin Hat Ranch on YouTube, and I'm going to have the link below in the comments. And if you're just starting out with solar, I highly recommend that you watch that. He goes over setting up a simple off-grid system, but he goes through all the components, all the terminology, explains everything in a way that a non-engineer can understand. I have watched that video series numerous times, and every single time, I get something from it. So if you're just starting out with solar, and you just want to know where to start there. Start with Tin Hat Ranch, the ultimate guide to an off-grid solar system. And the principles are going to apply whether you're doing an off-grid system or an on-grid system, or like what I have, which is an off-grid. It's an on-grid system, a grid-tied system, but I can take my entire house completely off-grid when I need to, if the power goes out. So, this series will help you figure all of that out. Engineer 775 is another person that I highly recommend on YouTube. And he, as you might surmise from his handle, is an engineer. And he installs Sol-Ark systems, and he installs other, solar, but he does a lot with Sol-Ark. And he also does a lot of other preparedness work for people, and he does videos of this work. He does, water systems. He does all kinds of great preparedness stuff. So I highly recommend you check out his videos, and especially if you're thinking about, going with the Sol-Ark system, which is the one that I used. He's got a lot of information on the Sol-Ark systems, really good videos. There are a lot of videos out there on wind, on small wind turbines. I've got to say wind to me was a lot harder to figure out than solar, for several reasons. But one of the reasons is I could never find, I've got a couple of wind videos down in the comments that I think are really good basic videos that you should look at if you're considering wind. But there's a lot of debate. There's a lot of people trashing particular companies, and this turbine's garbage, and this one's great, and the Chinese turbines are garbage. No, they're great. And some of it can be very confusing. So you have to do some research. And if you are going to, if you have a suitable area for wind, make sure you do it right. Make sure you get the turbine up high enough, and make sure you do some research into the company you're going to buy the turbine from, and make sure that you're comfortable with what you get. So I've got a couple of videos, and also a Department of Energy small wind guide in the comments below. And then the other thing you need to do when you're doing your research is you got to research your own house. So you got to pull your electric bills for the last year. And then what I did, I made an Excel spreadsheet. You can do it on a piece of paper if you want. But you need to write down what your kilowatt usage per month is. And then from there, so then you're going to know, how much you're actually using. Now, the first thing you should be doing is trying to get your house more efficient. So when we bought this house in Texas, there were a lot of incandescent bulbs. So I went around and I replaced every bulb in the house with an LED bulb. Got rid of all the incandescent bulbs and the fluorescent bulbs that were here. And that makes a huge difference. Just changing your bulbs to LED bulbs is a huge power difference. Another thing we did is there was a really old hot water heater, old and inefficient. And so one of the first things we did is we replaced that with a new hot water heater that is probably uses a quarter of the energy of the old one. So you want to do everything you can to make your house as efficient as possible, because you're going to be limited. No matter, even if you get a really big solar system and a really big battery bank and you've got the money to do that, there's still limitations on what you're going to be able to do. You're never going to be able to run every single thing that you ran from the grid, because it didn't matter. You could keep plugging things in and it really didn't matter. You could use as much energy as you wanted. But with solar, solar and wind and alternative, and even with generators, I mean, like I said, you're going to run out of gas. So all of a sudden electricity becomes something that you really have to be aware of. You have to measure, you have to know how much you need. So you got to do research on your house. You have to figure out the critical loads in your house. What are the things that you absolutely need? And like the Rolling Stones say, you can't always get what you want, but you need to figure out what your critical loads are. What is it that your family needs to survive? For example, your well pump, your septic system, if that takes energy, your refrigerator and your freezer, certain areas of the house that you might want to have, lights or outlets available for. But everybody's going to be different, but you got to figure out what your critical loads are. And then when you do your system, you have to make sure you cover at least those. And if you can't do everything on a cloudy day because you're running off your battery, you at least know that you can run your critical loads, the things that are most important. So researching your house, looking at your usage data, trying to make it as efficient as possible are real key first steps when you're going towards solar.